Venice. In winter, Venice was a different creature. Her hot, crowded tourist high season had long since ended, and the northern winter had crept in along the canals and into the bones of the city. La Serenissima was wrapped in grey, white, and pale blue. Necro had arrived after dark and immediately set about looking for Lightstone and her team in the maze of calle, churches, canals, and courtyards that was Venice. He was unable to pursue his mission during the day. Having evolved in a much deeper and darker ocean environment than their Ondan kin, Nautilans risked literally frying to death within a minute of exposure to the full Terran sun. Even the moon's reflected sunlight, as it waxed and waned, and especially around the time of the full moon, could result in a painful case of moonburn. Though his father had been Terran, and Necro could therefore endure limited time on Terra, he was still only able to visit after sunset, and he found the cooler, darker seasons easier to bear than when the sun was at its zenith. Just before dawn, he returned to his aquapod, a small autonomous submersible, to dive into the depths of the lagoon, where he slept and waited for the sun to slip below the horizon. Lightstone's team had chosen the week leading up to Carnivale as the time and place to make the announcement about their breakthrough work. There was an increasing buzz in the city as Venetian society, along with visitors who had arrived from across the globe, prepared for the festivities, buying and fitting costumes and organising food, music and decorations for elaborate events. Necro discreetly inquired at major hotels and restaurants, but no one had noticed the researchers. All attention was on the approaching Carnivale. For 2 nights he roamed the narrow streets and alleys, listening to conversations and talking to shop owners. He rode the Vaporetto along the Grand Canal, scanning both sides of the main waterway. On the second night, he was en route from San Marco to San Polo when he happened across 2 young women on top of the Rialto Bridge, gazing at the lights of the Grand Canal and the watercraft gliding in both directions under the famous arch. It was well past midnight, and few other people were about. They are not Venetian. People don't tend to sightsee in their own city, and aside from Carnivale, this was the tourist off-season. They weren't wearing or carrying Carnivale masks or costumes. As he watched, one of the women farewelled her friend with a kiss on the cheek and a wave as she descended the bridge stairs towards San Polo. Necro climbed to the top of the bridge, stood a few feet away from the remaining woman, and placed his hands on the ledge, breathing in the frosty night air. Alerted to his presence, she turned and smiled at the striking stranger who had appeared next to her. She was in her 30s, plain but with a pleasant enough face. Her light brown hair fell in soft waves to just below her chin. A red scarf circled her neck, the ends tucked into a fitted black winter coat. "Buonasera," said Necro, his voice velvet, his eyes making contact with the young woman's and holding her gaze. "Hello," she replied. She was not drunk, but had clearly had a few drinks with her friend. "You're not from here," Necro said. "No, I'm from Seattle." "Ah, an American. On a tour?" "I wish. I'm only here for a few days. I'm part of an international research team that's meeting here for the first time. We've got some big news to announce. The press is going to go crazy tomorrow." A faint smile flickered across Necro's face. She turned back to look at the canal with a wistful look. "A shame it's a business trip. I was just saying to my colleague that Venice is such a romantic city." "Indeed it is. I can never decide which sestiera is my favourite part of Venice, so I stay in a different area each time. This time it's San Polo. What part of Venice are you staying in?" "We're all staying in San Polo too," she exclaimed. "We're staying in a gorgeous place that has a breakfast room overlooking the Grand Canal." Necro grinned, less at her effusiveness than at how helpful she had been in narrowing the search down. He thought about offering to walk her back to her hotel so he could discover the team's location. but then decided she could give him that information in a different way and serve a far more powerful purpose. They spent another few minutes chatting, Necro making her laugh on several occasions. He sensed her warming to him. There was a moment of silence. He took his opportunity. "You truly are a beautiful woman," he whispered. She did not reply and seemed lost for words. He couldn't tell if she was blushing, or if it was the cold night air, or the wine in her cheeks. He gently took her face in one hand and lifted her lips towards his. "I don't even know your name," she murmured, with no further sign of protest. Necro brushed his lips over her willing mouth. Then he gave her the Narrayan kiss. From deep within him, and also out of nowhere, a torrent of seawater regurgitated from Necro's mouth into the woman's. She struggled, but he held her fast, the flow filling her lungs in seconds, the overflow spilling onto the Rialto Bridge and down the steps. Though she choked and tried to break free, he was too strong. There was a dreadful gurgling noise, then she lost consciousness in his arms and finally went completely limp. Necro released his grip and her body slid to the ground. He wiped his mouth, gathered his victim's red scarf and threw it over the edge of the Rialto Bridge into the Grand Canal before slipping quickly and quietly away from the scene. The city authorities would find the body in the morning, not in the water where it could be assumed the poor young woman had drowned, but on top of one of Venice's famous landmarks. The murder would delay the media event of Lightstone and her team, giving him opportunity to steal the research and technology and then find a buyer. His mother had instructed him not to harm Lightstone. She hadn't said not to harm anyone else.